Hi, my friends. Thanks for joining us today. It's your friend and Bible teacher, Tim, here with our journey through the Bible. Today's reading in Scripture was in Esther chapter 4 to 7. You know, we live in days when it's popular to hate Jews. Let's be honest about that. And there's nothing new to that story, really, from the time of Pharaoh and his plan to kill every male Jew baby to the Third Reich and their plan to just kill every Jew. There have been those who hated Jews. And as you look at history, every plan has ended badly for those who hate the Jews. You see, my friends, when God called Abraham, he made several irrevocable promises to his descendants, the Jews, including the one you read in Genesis chapter 12 and verse 3. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. Well, now in our reading today, there's another plot afoot to kill all the Jews. Queen Esther has been informed. And, she's the kind of woman who will do something about it. Earlier, when she was informed about the plot to kill the king, she saved the king's life. What shall we do this time? Well, she could approach the king directly, which is strictly illegal. And we know he had already deposed one queen. But I think Esther shows great courage with the words, if I perish, I perish. She said, I will fast and pray for 3 days. She asked for the Jews in the city to do the same thing for 3 days. And then she'll appear before the king. This must have been a difficult moment for Esther, but she came to the decision to risk her own life for the sake of God's people. That may have been part of the reason they asked the people fast and pray. She knew she would need the kind of boldness that only God could give. And God answered her prayer, and she found favor with the king. And so we see the king coming with Haman to the banquet, and her request, strangely enough, is to come back for a second banquet. Um, we don't know. Perhaps the timing didn't seem right to Esther for some reason. But we do know there was a reason, of course, in God's perfect timing. By delaying for a day at least, the king had a sleepless night, which had the effect of saving Mordecai's life. You see, while the king couldn't sleep and he was reviewing kingdom records that night, Haman was preparing the gallows for Mordecai. That's the turning point, really, of the whole story. And the king is reading how Mordecai saved his life. No coincidence, by the way. And just as he's wondering, how do we honor this hero? Guess who walks in? Wicked Haman. Another example of God's perfect timing is his entrance, just as Mordecai's story was being read. And of course, he was there to request permission to execute Mordecai. The fact that nothing had been done to honor this national hero, though, must be corrected. And the king thought, well, Haman is as knowledgeable as anyone about protocol in the kingdom. And so he ends up leading Mordecai through the streets on the horse with this ridiculous, quote, honor, and goes home depressed. And this is where his own wife summarized the heart of the story in Esther chapter 6, verse 13. When she said, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him. At the second banquet, for the first time, Esther reveals the true identity of her people. And she describes them as being sold because of the bribe of Haman to secure their death. And the king is obviously furious. He obviously didn't connect Haman's plot with the queen. The entire harem of a Persian king was very carefully protected with strict rules. It was unthinkable that anyone in the king's court would plot to somehow harm the queen herself. But once Haman was exposed as the enemy, it all became clear. His bribe, the urgency of destroying a whole people, the law that couldn't be changed, it had the effect of making the king himself an unwitting part of the plot to kill the queen. The king was so upset, he left the room, went into the garden to think about his next steps before he took action. And the result was, we read that they hanged Haman on the gallows. Yes, the same gallows that had been prepared for Mordecai. Haman the enemy is gone, but what about that decree that can never be changed? The extermination of all the Jews is still on the royal calendar. What happens next? We'll find out tomorrow as we get together. You know, this book ends with a story that's so sweet and almost sounds like it should begin with the words, once upon a time in the kingdom of Persia. And it becomes just as relevant as today's headlines as we see Israel at war. And just as God promised that the one who curses the Jews will be cursed, people today should take heed to the many ways God has kept that promise before they choose sides today. Will you think about that? Consider it today, my friend. Stay in the Word. And tomorrow our reading will finish the book of Esther, Esther chapter 8 to chapter 10. Read it, be back, and I'll look forward to being with you again real soon. Have a great day, folks.